Hi, my name is Benedict. In this video we're looking at VisiStage, which is a new mixing software-ish thing, a little hard to categorize. I intend to serve two purposes here. One is to show how to set it up in Reason, because they show lots of doors and setup, but then they don't show you Reason, which really isn't a failing per se, because for anyone who knows what they're doing, it's relatively obvious to know how to set up. Of course, they're targeting people who don't really know what they're doing, and that's one of the issues, one of the things that I really feel we're going to need to target here. Here is the software founded on KVR, and it's like, okay, I've seen plenty of these things. This one seems a little different, and it is a little different in certain ways. It does what it sets out to do fairly well. But in terms of what it sets out to do in a small sense versus what it sets out to really do in a deeper sense, turn out to be very, very different. The logic given is that he's been a musician and he had a massive mixing thing, and he didn't know how to do it. So he's like, "Oh, I'll beat my inability to fly my tools by making a different tool." While I fully get that logic, I think it has some, well, glaringly obvious problems. The first thing that I would say here, his massive cinematic sounds were recorded with heavy baked-in stereo delays. He then blames the traditional DAW. Now, the traditional DAW is built on the SSL, it's built on the Neve, it's built on the mixing desks that were used to mix Dark Side of the Moon, Eye in the Sky, Bob Dylan. You know, it's built on a tried and true system that works. And he's trying to say, well, that system doesn't work. Okay, there's always a point where we sort of go, well, okay, using bricks under our wagon is not as good as using a wheel, but that's provably different. This is not provably different. So the problem here was his heavy baked-in delays. This is why any mix engineer who's remotely serious will not accept multitracks, stems, etc. With effects of any kind on them, because they're baked in and you can no longer do your job. Someone's paying you to do a job, and at the same time they are just right up your backside by sending you stuff that you can't mix. You've got to either send it back or just send the client back. So he says, I didn't need a better set of ears, he just needed to turn the lights on. Yeah, I agree with you, but the problem is his idea of what turns the lights on is completely wrong. In this very modern mindset, he goes, well, if I can visualize what's going on, then I'll be able to make the right decisions. So this becomes what I refer to as a do it for you. So DIY, as in like I'll sit in my silo, completely isolated from the world, and I'll do it myself. But because I'm not going to take the time to train to learn how to do it myself, I'm going to need something to do it for me. So I'll pull in a whole pile of DIFYers, one knob devices, etc. So part one, how do we set it up in Reason? I have a project here which is incredibly simple, and we'll see that I've got some drums, and we install VisiStage on the end of the list, the chain. I just hate that term chain, it's kind of wrong. Depending upon what you want to do, you could put it up here, but then it's, in Reason's case, pre-SSL mixer, or here, and that way it takes in anything that you have done with the mixer. They do want you to zero any panning, because it doesn't actually take over your panning. It will carry over certain information in certain doors, other doors not so much, Reason being one of the not so much ones. Okay, so we've got our bass. Again, we can see I've decided to use a scream to manually up the bass a little bit, and we've got the VisiStage on the end of it. So 3 sounds, VisiStage sits on the end of all of them. I deliberately did nothing at all to these in terms of mixing. I just wanted to get a straight A-B, what happens. So we can open any of these. Oh, and I also used a reverb. Initially I didn't have a reverb, and I thought, okay, what's going to happen with adding a reverb? And of course that reverb wasn't attached. So common sense says, well, if it takes every sound, tap it at the end of the chain. So I added one afterwards. In this case, I just had to rejig the wiring so that we got send to send reverb, out of here to the VisiStage, back to return. So it's tapping the sound after the reverb. Exactly what we're going to expect. So we can open up this software, keep it open. There are a few things for changing what you see, and then working this way. I actually thought this way was going to be more comfortable. Interestingly enough, this way seems more comfortable, but the fact that you're offered options is nice. You've got some setups, which I'm not going to get into. It seems to suggest that there are several different profiles. What they are, I don't know. It almost indicates that they add their own reverbs, and okay, fair enough. I can't test them because they don't seem to be on. I didn't play with any of these because I didn't go doing an RTFM. Deliberately didn't want to do an RTFM, just work out what is obviously happening. So yes, in theory there is some sort of reverby thing. I don't think that this has any reverb because, as the name indicates, it's tight and dry. In other words, there's nothing but his location magic happening. Okay, fair enough, that's good. You can change certain things about the displays, did not touch any of those, but this you might want to. There are various ways that your pan knobs are going to read out information. So if you've got an existing mix, which we will look at in a little while, then you've got pans already, as you probably should have, then you need to recreate those pans up here. So seeing Reason's SSL style mixer uses a plus minus 100, then you're going to want to swap to this, which gives us a plus minus 100. So you've got various options to match the numbers. So if let's say my brass had 31 on that side, then we would come over here and go on that side. Now actually, I think I reorganized these, and when I opened the project again, they've reorganized themselves. There are several things about this that are poorly implemented and clunky. If that's one of them, I also had an issue where, to set this up, I had the 2 projects that I'm going to show open at once, and it seemed to clag the system. I can't give a bug report to say what did it, but it did. So when you set it up, you need to get rid of any panning that you have here and handle your pans here. I tried it to see what would happen and hard pan things, and the panning was lost, and it definitely doesn't display here. So seeing this is all about display, there's some kind of thing here. Okay, so that seems to be your setups come based upon what you've clicked on or something. It's, again, it is a little clunky. I didn't want to get into that too much, but it kind of hit me here that, oof, yeah, there's another bug. Okay, it's relatively new software, but this is stuff that should have been seen before. But I think he's also very much relying on his DAW doing all the work for him. Again, that's that I don't want to do the 1%. While I get it, it's the 1%ers that define anyone who does anything. I just wrote an article about it and used the example of a footballer, but I also used the example of Joy Division. They were very limited as musicians per se, but what they delivered was exceptional, such that it still echoes now, and it impacted and influenced so many acts. because they did all the 1% in terms of being 100% committed to what they did. They had to follow the lead of Martin Hannett to go the extra percents, and at the time they didn't want to do it like everybody else. They wanted to be all about it. But I think it's Hookie in particular who acknowledges that after the fact they were absolutely right, because Martin Hannett was absolutely right, and that defined Joy Division as we all came to know them. So with this mindset of, oh, well, I'll have this thing do it for me, I'll just use the software to make life easy for me by taking away the scut work. The scut work is a lot of what defines a Bob Clearmountain from an Alan Parsons, from an Andrew Sheps as a mix engineer. Okay, so that's our setup. It's really quite easy. Once we've got this set up, we can open any of these, and they all seem to be the same plugin. Okay, cool, that's elegant, because I was thinking, oh God, we're going to have to struggle with one of those, put this plugin here and that plugin there, and you know they'll talk to each other. This at least seems elegant in the sense that you've got one plugin. You've got to put instances of in each location that you want to tap, but we've got one plugin per se. Okay, that's nice. So I have my piece of music. And this is not mixed. I just wanted to see what does this do. So fairly typical forward, completely flat. Now I cannot hear depth in these headphones. You cannot hear depth in headphones, which is probably part of why people can't mix properly, because they're relying too much on headphones and you can't actually work out depth because there's no forward backwards in headphones at all. So anyway, we can bypass all, which is nice, so you can turn off all of what the plugin is doing. So if we start with, that's what I laid down. Sorry, there's only, I think, 4 bars of music, so it's rather limited. Okay, that's fine. So then we set this up, and it delivers this. And as such, for what it says it's going to do on the tin without getting into the hyperbole and ridiculous, as in we're going to help you move things forward and back, it does that actually really well, probably better than anything else that I have tried. And I am relatively opposed to these sorts of things. But this one, there was something different, so I thought, okay. And it was like, okay, cool. That's actually kind of good. If we want to move things in the stereo field, we can move them. Zeroing things is really annoying. So grab my brass. All of that. I can solo things. And we can see here that I've got some kind of extreme parts, which I did deliberately here on my echo. That's odd, it doesn't show it properly now. Before, when I first started, maybe that's because the echo is messing things up. I mean, sorry, the reverb's messing things up. Centered. You could really physically see that panned ping pong show up. Doesn't show up as much now, but I think all this visualization stuff is a really dangerous path. But if people are going to go down it, then they need to be able to see everything. Even though it's doing them a huge amount of damage. Anyway, so we can solo things, we can mute things, all that kind of stuff. I don't understand what the reverb mist is. It's a visualized thing. Maybe it will make more sense when the reverb is there. So, in terms of how I set things up, there's no right or wrong, but I just thought, okay, well, let's just make everything have a location based on where they physically might be on stage. So we take this, which has no particular difference A to B. I feel like there might be some, but it could be just a psychoacoustic things. Let's say move that reverb back. And straight away you notice, hang on, I've got less reverb than I had before. Okay. All right. Let's take our drums, let's put them in solo this time. Okay, so they get quieter, but they also get more dull. I don't know whether it's changing the bass. It's hard to tell because we've got two things happening at once, as in it's getting quieter, which reduces our perception of bassy bass, as well as losing treble, which loses our pull through, what drags it forward for us. So you'd have to look into the smaller details, assuming that we get told with regards to whether there is bass roll-off. It may have been there in the settings, but nonetheless, our sounds change. And okay, it's not possible to create difference or change without change, but you need to be aware of this. And being aware of this obviously sets up for, well, this is how these things work. So let's mute these. Drums and reverb. Yes, the reverb is there, but now we don't want it at the back of the room, but let's push it back there. So we've got drums at the back of the stage and reverb coming from the back wall. Okay, fair enough. Then we're going to add our bass sound. Really forward, but it's going to be a problem in a moment. We don't want it too far from our drums, otherwise they won't feel like they glue together. Now they feel like they reasonably glue together. And then of course our brass, our lead. There's just no point in pushing that back in the room, unless of course we wanted our melody to seem behind our drums, which is not a bad thing. It's not a thing that, it's a thing that I commonly do when I mix, simply because I mix my drums and bass so much quieter than everybody else's as a general rule, as in it's not lead kick drum. So I give them a bit more presence by allowing them to be a little bit further forward in terms of the forward-back balance. So we'll keep our brass forward, so it's doing its job. And we can then A-B, so. It seems like we've improved things quite a bit. So it's easy at this point to go, revolutionary, game changer. But we've got some real problems. Not only can we not do all the things that we need to do when really mixing properly up here, like there's no EQ, there's only level, pan, and this whatever meddling is done to move things back, which seems to be a combination of level and frequency reduction. Okay, yes, that works, but that's always worked. That's what Alan Parsons did with Dark Side of the Moon on the Neve, and that's what Bob Claremountain did with Roxy's Avalon, and the Church's Skins and Heart on, I think it was an SSL, doesn't really matter. But this is not new. The only thing that's different is we've decided, we're going to visualizer it rather than really know what we're doing. That to me is a problem. So that's how it sets up. It sets up surprisingly easily. In that sense, is elegant. It has got some signs of being rather clunky, especially if it doesn't integrate with your DAW, as in your DAW isn't prepared to hand it the information that it wants. Alrighty, little pause now as we close this project. And here we are. We have a track that I just finished yesterday and gave its first mix yesterday. I'm not particularly bothered by the mix that I gave it. I don't think there was anything that really stood out and made me think, I need to fix that. Maybe in time I will finesse. But so we have a working mix, which does get busy here. Righto, so my thoughts were then, okay, well, what happens to compare this in the heat of battle? So I did all the same stuff. I put a VisiStage at the end of each of the runs. I debated as to whether I turned off effects or not, but I thought, no, okay, well, look, we'll just go with what's there and then just do his thing. The problem with that being, I've made decisions with regards to depth. I use echo a lot for placement. And I thought, okay, well, that's fine. Let's go see what happens. So we've got this. I did have to carry off the pans. You can't see that. There we go. So you can see the sounds are arrayed rather complexly. This idea that he gives you in the pictures of everything being like physically removed or moved away from everything else is not how it's going to be. In reality, a lot of stuff is going to be down the center. But you can see a little bit of panning here. One of the sounds is over on this side, another one's over here, and then this one's here. And my piano is straight down the line. What we're hearing is the original mix. What I hear is a lot of loss of treble. So obviously we've also lost a lot of clarity from the reverb. So we're in danger of making things muddy. So this is my original master. This is running a WAV file. This is running live. So I just very quickly said, okay, what if we just whack on a EQ point to give us back all that treble that we seem to have lost. Original mix. Become a bit more even-steven, but interestingly, they become more even-steven and the results are kind of exactly the same as they were before. Here are my problems with this. As I've already pointed out, it's a do-it-for-you thing, which means that rather than learning the skills of how to do this, you get lured into using a piece of software, which does ask to part with money. So there's another layer to this. But we get asked to use this piece of software that says it's going to do it for us. And it mystifies us as to what's happening. Okay, it might tell you somewhere how it's doing it, and that's fine, it should, but who's going to read it? And that's their fault. But the thing is, a proper mix engineer will learn these things. If somebody is not learning these things, it means they're not studying their craft. So you've got to ask, why are they not studying their craft? And the answer could be, oh, well, I'm really a guitarist, I'm really a singer, I'm really a singer-guitarist, I'm really a bongo player, so I don't really want to learn mixing. So why are you mixing? It's like me as a mix engineer going out and playing football, and when they go, Benedict, you're really shit at this, you don't even know the rules. I go, yeah, but I need to, otherwise, I'm not going to be popular. Well, I'm not popular with the team now because I'm fucking them up. I'm losing the game for them through not caring about what I'm doing. The girls are not impressed because I'm not scoring goals or whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing in football. So the problem is I'm just making a deal of myself. So if you're not a mix engineer and you're mixing your stuff, you've really got to be asking the question, why am I doing this? Now, I know that half of your Captain Obviouses are going to be putting your hands up and going, oh, but Benedict, you don't understand. It's like, dude, I've been doing this for 30, 40 years, and there's very little I don't understand. I've been there, I've done it, I go through everything, I have to do everything myself. So the thing here is that if you're not working with others, you've got to look at your reasons why. And you're probably going to say, oh, but it's going to cost money. Bullshit. What that means is that you haven't had the courage to develop a relationship with somebody who likes mixing. If you're a guitarist who struggles with mixing, you don't like mixing. You don't want to be mixing. You're doing it under sufferance and struggling with it and making your guitaring sound worse by delivering shitty mixes. Where's the sense in this? Getting a DIFY tool to try to offset those problems is not going to solve the problem, because as we hear here... Let's just turn that off. If we don't have the... It's merely made the mix sound different. It hasn't made it sound better. It's made it sound different, but we can mount a reasonable argument to say that it's made it sound worse. If this is the aim, and this is what our DIFY did for us, as in it made the mix less clear, then this isn't a win. We can say, oh, but I can solve it by doing this. Now that I'm not watching cartoon pictures, there is no appreciable sense of distance. Whilst we've got the picture open, we can try to fool ourselves that we're hearing, oh, I'm hearing those drums go right back. All you're hearing is them settle back in the mix because A, they're quieter, and B, they're duller. You could have done that yourself. You could have simply gone to your drum channel and said, look, I'm going to shave a couple of dB off it. I'll open up my EQinator and shave a few dB off it. You know, dude, this is mixing. This is just the basics of it. So applying these things, did this just change shape? Applying these things is problematic because you've gone from, oh, I can't do it myself, to I'm not going to bring in somebody else who's going to be a specialist at this. And, you know, look, this is how Henry Ford changed the world by saying, okay, I'm going to have one person specialise on painting and another person specialise on gluing the exhaust and a third person specialise on gluing the wheels. And that made the process far more efficient for everybody. And while you can't reasonably compare that to a single master craftsman, the difference there is that a single master craftsman invariably did not do everything on something that complex. So even a carriage, you know, chances are that master craftsman of the carriage, he may well have been doing the woodwork, but he likely had extra people around him to do the metalwork. And maybe an extra person around him to do the leather work. The concept that one man built the whole Rolls-Royce is an absurdity. And yet we seem to want to believe that. So, yes, kudos in the sense that on the surface this seems like it wins, but it's actually a really bad play, because if once we understand what's going on, which we should understand very early on in our mixing process if we're going to continue to mix, and remember we should really only be mixing if mixing is a thing that we like doing and show aptitude for. I show no aptitude for football, so I stay very far away from it, because there's no win there for me. Nobody wants me near football, so why go there? So specialise in the thing that you're good at and build relationships with people who are good at complementary things. If you're going to continue to do it yourself, then you've got to learn to love it and you've got to do the job fully. So as I said, if I want my sound to seem like it's further back, so if I open this up, okay, I've already done some of that because I've added a reverb, a room space, into my rhythm section to pull them back. So let's go over here and make sure that this is turned off. Go back to my rhythm section. No reverb, except for what's coming through the system. Bit of reverb gives it space. That inside the mix pushes it back because it goes, oh, I'm in a different space, I've got more reverb around me, I'm probably further back. If I had felt that it was a little too bright and sparkly, then I would bring in some kind of EQinator. Here we go, this will do the job. Oh, okay, it wasn't what I was after, but I can bring in an EQinator and say, okay, now I've moved my thing back. Forward, back. This is all you need to learn how to do. Now, if you are going to be silly enough to, as you're making your sounds, go, this is going to want to be at the back, so I will make the move that Benedict made there, and then start your mix. It's just going to be like, no, dude, that's not how you do it. So the thing is, when you're in the mix, you use a mix EQ. I love the fact that Reason has this thing here, and you can see that I did apply some of that, in that I rolled off a little bit of tops, but I like things to be really bright, and I also wanted, as I said, these drums to be really bright, because I tend to not mix my drums as forward, as loud as most other people. So to keep them present, I will still have them fairly bright. No EQ. This is all you need to be doing. So if you're going to do a task, do it fully. Remember the 1%. You've got to do all the 1%, and these are the little 1%, as in is if you're going to export it to a mix engineer. The 1% is that you take the time to go through and get rid of all the things that you've done. If you've added stuff like this, then you go through and you go, okay, I'll turn them off. You go through here and you turn that off. Your DAW may have a switch that does it all for you, but even there, you want to go through and make sure that it's exactly what it should be, so that when your mix engineer gets it, he gets raw and then can do his full job, which should include things like making sure that things have depth. As soon as you get into this do it for you, things that give you a visual, that fool you into thinking that you're doing a better job than you are, you're getting probably a worse result than you were before, because you're not hearing things, you're particularly looking at them, and you just hear a difference and you think, oh, well, that difference is better. I was a bit sort of like, oh, okay, that's kind of impressive. But then when I come back from lunch and I listen to it, I'm like, that's a bit munted. So why would I want this for free, let alone to pay for it? So please be very, very careful when you bring these kinds of, well, I think false tools in. They do damage. If you can't, in your mind's eye, look at your mixer, not keys, mixer, and your pans, which are, well, off, we'll say. I think it was this that was centered and that was slightly off, so it was something like that. If you can't look at your pans and get a sense of how they are, and look at your sections, just drag him out there, and get a sense of, okay, well, how do they sit? It just means you're not doing your job. And going, oh, well, I'll get something that does the job for me. It's just fooling yourself. And if you're handing over money to be fooled, how should you really feel about yourself at that point? So please be very, very careful. This is not the first of its kind, but it does stand out, and on the surface it seems like a cool thing, but in reality it's actually making your mixing worse and asking you to pay for it. I think you're paying twice, one in money to somebody else's bank account, and I think he believes in what he's doing. Fair enough. But it shows a complete lack of understanding. So he's trying to tell the world what's good and right and wrong about mixing. And he's gaslighting the world. He's gaslighting people by saying that old-style mixing was impossible to do and that you could only ever fail at it. It's like, well, dude, if you do it wrong, you will only ever fail at it, or you will succeed at what you set out to achieve, which was a flat, ugly, messy mix, because in your case, you tell us you brought in unmixable material and then didn't know how to mix it. So, rookie error, second rookie error, compounded, and rather than working that out, you said, I'll just gaslight the world into believing that old-style mixing was shit. No, what you've not admitted to yourself is that you didn't learn to mix. Fair enough, why should you? If you're a guitarist, it's really unwise for you to spend a large amount of time learning to mix, because you should spend that large amount of time in learning to be a better guitar player, because that's how you win. I mean, Eddie Van Halen, while he could mix if necessary, Eddie Van Halen was famous for being a guitar player because, you know what, Eddie Van Halen was a good guitar player. He improved his keyboard skills. He actually started with keyboard skills. Before the guitaring, he was a pianist, and then he moved that off into synthesizers and sort of changed the ball game a little bit. Okay, he didn't invent that because Billy Idol was doing it before him. Billy Idol didn't invent it either, but nonetheless, when Jump came out, the concept that metal, pop metal, glam metal, is largely what it became, but that hard rock could use keyboards without it seeming like prog. And so Jump led to quite a lot of other, what we might call synth-heavy or synth-aided rock bands. And that's a cool thing, you know. So, but it's because everyone specialised. Everybody did what they were good at. People weren't sitting around going, oh, I'm shit at this thing, but I'll act like I'm good at it. Because all that did was made fools of everybody. Okay, if you find value in my approach, please reach out. I am delighted to work with people. I am officially retired from normal day-to-day work now, so I'm open to projects so long as they add value. And we got to do it right. If you want to write nasty things, just don't. I will delete them. If you're the developer, I'm sorry. I appreciate your idea is interesting and in certain ways nicely executed. In certain ways, yes, it's got some bugs. You could fix those. But in terms of your logic behind this, I'm sorry, but it's really, really broken. And it is going to lead people astray because you've led yourself astray. I am happy to teach anybody how to sort of do it the right way, the time-honoured way, the way that worked for Dark Side of the Moon and Avalon and every record that matters. If you feel the need, reach out, just reach out kindly. All right, get out there. You have a good day.